that. Let's take a look at this right now. Because this is going to be the only way, one of the only ways we can get out of this debt, because there's no way this can continue.
I want you to know that there's a real
Shout out to
possibility
Clear
that
Value.
President Trump will.
Shout out to Clear Value Tax. This guy is awesome. This guy has some of the best videos on finance on the web. So let's take a look. Let's take a look. Because there's no way we can just give people raises. There's no way we can just... I mean, it's over in terms of trying to create jobs and stuff like that will actually pay for people's living wages. There's something that we need to do here, and I mean, shout out to Trump for trying to do something here. I don't know. We'll see.
Revalue gold, which would give the U.S. government billions, if not trillions, of dollars. Now, the government could use that money to pay down the national debt, to start a sovereign wealth fund, or fund any or many of President Trump's programs. Now, before you say that sounds crazy, I want you to listen to this. So this gold revaluation, it's legal and it's been done before. And if it happens, of course, the price of gold would absolutely skyrocket. And I want to break this down for you. Okay, so what is gold revaluation? So I want to explain it to you like this. The US government holds 261 million troy ounces of gold. Okay, so how much is that gold worth? Well, it depends on who you ask, because the US Treasury officially values this gold at $42.22 an ounce. However, the real market price of gold right now is close to $3,000 an ounce. So based on the government's accounting, their gold is valued at around $11 billion because, again, they're valuing their gold at $42.22 per ounce, when in reality, the true value should look closer to this, closer to $784 billion. So gold revaluation is when the government revalues the gold that they're holding. Okay, so what happens if they do this revaluation? So you see how the value of the government's gold holdings went up by about $773 billion. So the US Treasury would issue a gold certificate to the Federal Reserve for $773 billion. And in exchange, the Federal Reserve would send the Treasury $773 billion. And that $773 billion that the Treasury receives would not be a loan. It doesn't add to the debt. It's money free and clear. But ultimately, this would be an accounting move, which would create billions, if not trillions of dollars out of thin air without raising taxes, without cutting spending, and without borrowing a single extra dollar. Now, I want you to know that in order for President Trump to do this, he'll need congressional approval. However, this has been done before. So in 1934, gold was revalued from about $20 an ounce to $35 an ounce. So that single move created massive liquidity, for the government. It devalued the dollar and helped stimulate economic recovery during the Great Depression. And then in the 1970s, they did it again, twice. In 1972, the price of gold was raised from $35 an ounce to $38, and in 1973, it went up to $42.22 an ounce. So that is where the official price is today. So this idea of gold revaluation, it isn't new, but it's, of course, been a long time since they've done it. But listen, I want you to think about how big this could potentially be. So gold is valued at approximately $3,000 an ounce right now, right? So that would give the US government an extra $773 billion. But what if gold went up to $5,000 an ounce? Or how about $10,000 an ounce or $20,000?
This has been made. This video was made about 8 months ago, and I guess since this video, gold has touched around 5,000 an ounce, I believe, around there.
What if the government manipulated or squeezed the price of gold much higher? You have to think about it. For every $4,000 an ounce that gold goes up, it gives the U.S. government an extra $1 trillion. So if gold goes to $72,000 an ounce, it would give the U.S. government $18 trillion. So that's enough to wipe away half the U.S. national debt. If gold goes up to $144,000 an ounce, then you just wiped away the entire U.S. national debt. So would there be consequences if gold went to $144,000 an ounce? I'm sure there would be, but the U.S. national debt would be wiped away to zero. And here's something really interesting. President Trump has already talked about doing a full audit of the gold in Fort Knox. So some people think that this could be the first step towards a revaluation. So the last full audit of Fort Knox was in 1953, so that's over 70 years ago. Since then, we've only had spot checks and photos, so that's not a real form of verification. And now Elon Musk and Doge, as you probably heard, they're trying to get involved, saying that they want to personally inspect the gold. Okay, so why now? Why the sudden push for an audit? Could this be the setup for a revaluation? Now, let's talk about what would happen in terms of the consequences of if the government does revalue gold. So first, I'm going to say that it depends on how much gold gets revalued for. So if gold gets revalued at today's market price, so let's just say $3,000 an ounce, it wouldn't turn the markets upside down. So I'm sure that we'd see a nice spike in the price of gold. And the government, they would receive an extra $773 billion. But
that's not enough. $773 billion is not enough. It's not enough. Trump needs to turn this thing up. Quick, bro. Quick. Because folks can't even, do well with $50 an hour, let alone 15. Poverty line at $140K a year. He's gonna have to turn this thing up to he has to wipe out inflation. He has to wipe it out now, or the country's done for.
In the grand scheme of things, that's not a game changer. The U.S. government's going to run a $2 trillion deficit in 2025. But if the government revalues gold at $3,000 an ounce and it spikes gold to $4,000 an ounce, and then the government revalues gold shortly thereafter at $4,000, and it spikes gold to $10,000 an ounce, and then the government revalues gold at $10,000, and it spikes gold to $20,000, and so on and so forth. In that type of scenario, where gold is at $20,000 an ounce and the government receives an extra $5 trillion, then yes, of course, the consequences will be bigger. But essentially, it's going to depend on the ultimate revaluation price. But with any of these decisions, what they plan on doing, there's going to be pros and cons. So here's what the critics are saying. In terms of the pros, they're saying that this is a legitimate tool for monetary flexibility, that it's going to provide the U.S. government with additional funding without printing or borrowing. And there's a theory that it will bolster confidence in the U.S. dollar by associating with gold. But then you have the other critics that are saying that this is a bad idea because they're saying that this is accounting manipulation rather than sound fiscal policy.
Bro, we need an accounting manipulation, bro. We need an accounting manipulation. Shalonius in the chat says 100. He says 100K gold. Let's fucking go, bro. We need an accounting. We need an accounting manipulation. We need books to be fudged. We need Trump to cook these books. We need them to cook these books, bro. I'm telling you. This can't go on any longer. It just can't. It just can't. The books need to be cooked immediately.
They're saying that this move would undermine confidence in the U.S. dollar and that this is reckless monetary expansion. Now, I want to share with you my take, so my opinion on this whole situation. So I will say, I've said this so many times, the US government has a debt crisis and the situation is not getting any better. A lot of people believe that President Trump is going to balance the budget. I would say that's very unlikely to happen.
The U.S. government debt crisis. He's being nice. He's being nice. It actually, it's not just not getting better. It's becoming a matter of life and death, bro. And where I used to live, by the way, I sold my ranch. I left California. I left the country. I'm getting residency as we speak in Bariloche, Argentina. I'm in Argentina right now. Um, I have I made the decision with my family that now is the right time to go. That we can make American dollars in another country and be well better off. And it's so far it's working. Argentina, way better quality of food, quality of life. Even you would think, oh, Argentina's money is fluctuating. They're built for it. These like they understand how to make do, how inflation really doesn't affect these guys' lives. It's hard to explain. Maybe I'll do another video, but it really is crazy where on the other side of the coin, inflation and a debt crisis right now just boiling over in America would absolutely send America into an absolute Mad Max level situation. Because the skills aren't there. People don't know how to, produce their own food, produce their own, just be self-sustaining. Everyone needs to go to a store to buy something. They need to go to a store to have clothes. They need to go to a store to have, to have everything. So here in Argentina, people are a lot more self sufficient, even though it is a first world country. These guys, I mean, it's very nice. Um, so that was just about me, but like I just think I think we need to really consider blowing this whole system up by repricing gold. This might be the way.
The government's just passed the government funding bill for 2025, and there were no spending cuts. So from my point of view, the debt crisis is just going to get worse. But when you're looking at this, all I can say is that desperate times call for desperate measures. So I believe that, yes, this gold revaluation option is on the table. I don't know if they're going to be going after $773 billion or if they're going to be going after trillions. But regardless, this is definitely bullish for gold. So listen, I just want to bring to your attention that the US dollar is losing relevance and dominance. Central banks around the world are stockpiling on physical gold, so this is no secret. And I've been saying for many years that I'm bullish on gold. So here's the price of gold over the past 20 years. If you think that you're too late to the party, I would say I doubt it. Okay, why? Because inflation will persist. Governments will continue to print money, trillions of dollars, and now there's the potential of a catalyst of gold revaluation. And to me, I believe that gold is a good way to diversify. So over the same time frame, you can see how gold has actually been outperforming the S&P 500, so stocks. So keep that in mind. Now, if you want to invest in gold, first I'll tell you that you don't have to be rich to invest in gold. There are many ways that you can do it. So I'm going to talk to you about two ways. So the first way is that you can buy physical gold. Honestly,
Let's see. I think he's going to try and sell us ways to buy gold. But gold is at what, 4,200, 4,300 right now? I think if Trump actually pulled this off, say Trump say Trump was able to do this. He's able to cook the books on gold. Go from 42 an ounce to, say, even 5,000 an ounce. And then they create this big gold bubble, which is already kind of in the works, to say $15,000 or $20,000 an ounce, and we're able to wipe out most of our debt and lower inflation. Because again, we're gonna be, after this year, we're gonna be paying $1.2 trillion in interest on our debt with China, and so that's bad. And say he's able to do this and bring in an extra $18 trillion into our economy. I think that would be probably one of the most bullish scenarios for crypto ever, at least for Bitcoin. I can't really say for altcoins because, I mean, this last 18 months has shown that Bitcoin can pump and altcoins can sit right where they're at, you know? Um, but if he's able to pull this off, Bitcoin would go well over $1 million. I mean, look at JP Morgan. They just came out and said that Bitcoin within the next 6 to 12 months will be at 170K. And they have been right in their predictions in years past on Bitcoin relative to gold, because they've come to that conclusion because they've looked at gold and they said that Bitcoin is lagging behind gold, and they are in the same type of asset class, which is historic. That J.P. Morgan would put Bitcoin in the same type of asset class as physical gold. Um, that's been a major development that folks have kind of glossed over the last few months. So, you know, um, I can see Bitcoin going absolutely insane. And if Ethereum could catch up to it, then you would see the valuable altcoins do well also. So it would bring the whole market up. Um, so we'll see what happens, man. Um, shout out to Clear Value Tax for the video. Um, and I mean, I'm willing to take the risks. I'm willing to take the risks based on what he's saying. Again, the risks being that the cons. Again, I'll go back and look at them. Is accounting manipulation rather than sound fiscal policy. But I mean, guys, haven't we been doing that anyway? Haven't haven't we been doing that anyway? Haven't we? Hasn't the government been cooking the books for the last 20, 30 years, ever since we gotten in bed with China? Haven't we just been doing that anyway? So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? And the confidence in the dollar couldn't be any more undermined, as it is right now. I mean, honestly, I think that one's wrong. I think the dollar, U.S. dollar, would actually do quite well. But again, for Bitcoin to pump, the U.S. dollar, the Dixie, has to go down, and gold would have to kind of go down for Bitcoin to catch up. So yeah, man, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, man. I am